Hey, what's going on, everybody? Michael back at you guys. Round five. We got Mike and Mike in the morning, aka the afternoon. We got my boy Michael here. Man, appreciate you coming through, answering the call to action today. How's your day going, bro?
Hey man, easy Sunday. I just take care of my plants and
Hey,
go over lectures for school. That's about it.
hey, a lot different from being in the military. What branch of service did you serve in?
I was in Army.
What made you join?
You know, I was when I was young, I was in ROTC when I was in high school.
Okay.
So I've always been into like the military, just like the majority of us. It was something that drew us to that. And I was drawn to the military. And I actually got a scholarship in high school to go to Cal State Long Beach for a military ROTC type scholarship. And I did that for about like 6, 7 months. And I was just like, nah, this isn't for me, man. I'm tired of school. So I called the recruiter and off I went to Fort Benning.
What you say? You're infantry, Bravo or Charlie?
I was 11 Bravo.
Oh, do you want to be that MOS, or does that was like, here you go?
No, that's what I
That's what
chose.
you chose.
I mean, my GT score wasn't the greatest, but I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to, when I watched, old war movies, I watch, what's that one with the Marine Corps drill sergeant? See my
Oh,
brain. Full Metal
Full
Jacket.
Metal Jacket. Yeah,
I would
yeah.
watch that movie all the time. And then the whole war part. And I was just like, man, that's what I wanted. That's what I want to do. So when I went into MEPS, they sit you down. They're like, based off your GT scores, this is what you qualify for. Tanker, or something else, cook, infantry. I was like, infantry. They were just like, they
Easy,
were like,
easy to do.
okay. And off I went.
Where'd you end up going to, like, your first duty station?
My first duty station was Fort Stewart, 3rd ID.
How was that?
Uh, it was a culture shock for me in the beginning because I was a city boy. I was from California. We had beaches, we had sun, we had all this stuff, and I get thrown into the swamp of this deep South. It was kind of a culture shock for me. Until then I started to figure things out, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the people. It was just my first duty station. You know what I mean? It was just
Yeah,
I was a rebel. I'm still a rebel. I was very bullheaded. Surprised I never got in trouble, but I made it. So,
yeah. Hey, made it through. What?
yep.
How long did you serve for?
I was in for almost 22 years.
22. When'd
So,
you get out?
uh, July 1st, 2016 was my last day
Did it go
officially.
by? Did it go by fast for you?
It went by fast after the 10-year mark. So after I hit 10 years, it seemed like that 20, well, I'm going to say 18 hit. And then I was like, Jesus, I'm at 18 years already. And then, I deployed at my last deployment was when I was in about 18 years. And no, 19 years. I think, I don't remember. 18 something.
Close enough, right?
Yeah,
Either.
18,
Yeah,
19 years I was there. That was my last deployment. And, I was just like, I felt everything. You know, I had a very young platoon. I was a platoon sergeant at that time. So I had a very young platoon, and I was the oldest one in my platoon. And it was hard, man, keeping up and the aches and the pains and the knee pains, real bad knee pain. And at that moment, I got back from that one. And that's when I started, thinking like, this is a young man's game being an infantryman. I got to start really thinking about what I want to do.
what'd you come up with?
With my wife at the time, well, after thinking, I was like, well, I can still do it because I was eligible for master sergeant. But my wife at the time was done. She was fed up. And she was like, you already got enough time. You get your retirement. It's not like you're losing out. You're going to get something. And then plus your disability. She understood how it all worked. And she was just like, I'm tired. I'm tired of you going to the field. I'm tired of you probably deploying again. I don't want to live my life like that.
Yeah,
So, I was like, all right. I was like, figure it out. I was like, you figure it out. You figure out where we're going to live, where you want to live. If you get a job guaranteed, or you get a job offer to where you want to live, I'll get out. And that's exactly what she did. She was like, I got a job offer in Austin, Texas. I was like, oh shit. I guess I'm getting out then. That's the promise I made. So I did it.
Were you ready?
No, I wasn't ready. I wasn't forecasting that far ahead. You know what I mean? I knew there was a point I was going to get out, but I didn't really prepare myself to get out. You know, I didn't do it till like the last minute. And it was almost like I was scrambling. You know, instead of me prepping to get a job, I waited until it was closer to me getting out to look for a job when I should have been doing all that preparation. So even though I did get the job, you know, the last minute, you know, you should always, if you know you're getting out, man, as you start any process, you should start, I say 6 months to a year. You should start just figuring everything out, where you're going to live, what you're going to do, you know, finances, all this stuff. You should just start laying out at least a year out, saving money, because jobs aren't guaranteed when you get out, you know.
True.
So I know I'm getting out. Let me start saving a little bit of money just in case, an emergency fund, just in case things don't work out the way I want it to work out.
So how far out were you planning to get out? Do you think? Like, what was your timeline?
I'm gonna say like 3 months.
3 months. Yeah, that's not
It
a lot
was,
of time.
yeah, it was during like my ACAP process. That's when it really started to kick in. You know, like, man, I'm actually getting out. I was talking about it. I said it. The words came out my mouth that I'm going to put in my retirement, but I wasn't really the word, because I was still retiring on the military. You know, I was still in. I was like, man, I don't think about that. I got money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then that 90-day mark hit where I started, you know, doing physicals and doing paperwork. And I was just like, I really need to start figuring something out because this is real.
Where'd you retire from?
Fort Bliss.
Fort Bliss. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that did you have people like in your corner, like sort? I mean, it seems I don't know the whole story. That's why I try and get to it. But like, did you have people pointing you in the right direction when it was your time to get out, or were you sort of just caught up in the moment of taking care of the? Were you platoon sergeant when you got out?
Yeah.
So you all the way up to those like 90 days. You're just doing your job pretty much, huh?
Well, not up to those 90. So I wasn't doing my job. I was still platoon sergeant on paper, but the sergeant major, you know, he had a policy about anyone that's retiring 6 months before, you know, your final date. You don't have to do anything. Just take
Okay.
care of yourself. So for 6 months, I was just being lazy. I wasn't doing no PT. My wife would go to work. I just sit at home all day. I would have ACAP. I would show up one day and not show up for another 3 days. You know, I was just kind
Yeah.
of, you know, doing my thing. So my first sergeant was retiring also at the same time. We had the same day, same time, same everything. And he was pretty supportive. You know, I'd show up to work. He'd be like, "Man, go home. What are you doing here?" You know, I'd show my face every once in a while. He'd be like, "Go home. You don't need to be here. Don't even show up, period. Just call me." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Don't tell me that."
Yeah. That's gonna make the time go by real fast when you got days like that. Like those days aren't gonna go by slow.
Yeah. And you know, it's a long process if you think about everything. You know, ACAP is ACAP, whatever. You know, 90% of the stuff that they teach you, you can Google it yourself. You
Right.
know, it's the other stuff, you know, there's a lot of things that they don't teach you. Like they talk about resume writing, at least when I was in, but they didn't really sit you down and write a full blown resume with you and how to translate it from military jargon to civilian talk. When
Right.
you know, when you write your resume, I was a platoon sergeant for, you know, 50 soldiers and da 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 with a fire team and a squad. And civilians look at that, they're like,
I don't even
I
know what that is.
I have no idea what this means.
So
So,
yeah, go ahead, keep going.
you know, I figured out how to translate my resume over to civilian, you know, to civilian stuff. I took what a platoon sergeant would be in the civilian sector. I took what, you know, a certain amount of equipment that I was responsible for. I took it how to translate it over to how civilians would see it. It's all numbers, you know. Civilians see numbers. You know, they say
Right.
you was in charge of $3 million worth of equipment. They're like, holy crap! We've never had nobody that was responsible for that. You was responsible for how many people? This many. Holy crap! You know. So you
Yeah.
just got to know how to, you know, translate it over to where civilians see Numbers have to pop out at them.
So when it was your time to get out in those 90 days, what was something that might have flew over your head, or some things that you wish you would have known while you were still in that you had to take care of once you were out?
I would say the medical side. I was very stubborn about going to sick call, especially the higher up I went. I couldn't be on profile as a platoon sergeant or a squad leader. You know,
Yeah.
I, cou- I you know I couldn't be on profile as a drill sergeant. That was like frowned upon. Unless you had some major surgery to be on profile as a drill sergeant. So I wasn't really taking care of myself physically. I blew my whole ankle out one time doing the Tough Mudder, and I came back to work, and I was a drill sergeant. I came back to work limping around like it was nothing, and everybody's like, "Man, you need to go get checked out." I was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I didn't take care of myself. I broke my hand one time during a training event when I was a platoon sergeant at Fort Bliss. I broke my hand, and 3 days later, my first sergeant looked at my hand. He was like, "What the hell are you doing? Get in the
Yeah.
Humvee." He made me go to the aid station. So and that just all caught up with me because nothing was documented. Even though I was in all this pain, knee pain, back pain, all this pain, I never went to sick call to get it documented until like my last few months in. Then I tried to rush document it. By that time, it's a little too late because it's really not a pattern.
That's
So
true.
I would say when the minute that pain hits, suck it up, go to sick call, get it documented. Give me some more. Go back the next month. Go again. Go again. If you got that pain, keep going. And that's where I messed up.
Did you have to end up taking care of like the most of your disability when you got out the military then?
So I did it all while I was in.
Okay.
So you go to your little appointments, you print out your medical records, you turn it all in, and then when I got out, I got a phone call saying, "Hey, this is the VA, whoever from the VA, you need to go to these appointments." So I went to like 3 or 4 appointments, and then once it was done, about like 2 months later, that's when I got my first payment.
Were you satisfied with what you got?
No. I mean, I got 70%. But when I look at it, I'm seeing people that didn't do half of what I did.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
Might not even, they got people that, I mean, not to compare and contrast, but just for example, they got people that have no deployment time that have 100% ratings too.
Yep. And
So,
I deployed 4 times to the Middle East, and then I deployed to Kosovo, which that was pretty much a vacation. I was an infantryman for almost 22 years. I jumped
right.
out of planes. I was a paratrooper. I was a light infantry, mechanized infantry, striker, and a paratrooper. And this is all I'm worth. You know what I
Are
mean?
you
So
still there now, or did you increase?
I'm still at 70. So right now, what I should have done a long time ago is gone to therapy for
There you go.
a lot of issues, not just military issues. I'm not going to blame everything on the military. It's just life in military
Yeah.
is tied into that. Uh, Once I'm done with this, she's going to give me all my paperwork because that's what she works with is a lot of veterans.
I think your cord came out. Your sound.
You got me?
Yeah, you good now.
All right. So yeah, she works with a lot of veterans, and once I'm done here, she's going to give me whatever paperwork I have to turn into the VA. And one thing that the VA, when I look at my disability worksheet, they never diagnosed me with post-traumatic stress.
Wow. All that time in.
Yeah, it's not even on there. I looked at it. They diagnosed me with insomnia,
Okay.
which can fall under the umbrella of post-traumatic stress as a
Right.
sleep disorder. But they never have it in there like post-traumatic stress was deployed to 4 times as an, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I never got anything on that. So I think once I get done with this and I resubmit, and I'm gonna do it third party because I'm not gonna try to figure that out myself. I should hopefully get to the percentage I want.
Yeah, it's like what you said earlier. It's like the paper trail. Like you're not gonna like if you're an NCO, you're not gonna chapter a soldier out of the army or the military without the proper paperwork. You can't just say, "Hey, Schmo, you're out today. Here's your paperwork. You're gone." right, for the most part. So it's like the same thing with the disability. It's like, yeah, you got to just create that paper trail. And like, if it takes
Mm-hmm.
you to go back to like your therapy, like you said, or whatever you may be, for them to get that in your records, that's what it takes. And like, that's why it's so vital to go, like you said earlier too. Once you start doing it that way, you just get the ball rolling, because like, yeah, everyone says even 20, 30 years in the military went by pretty fast for them. So it's like that door is going to shut in your life, and you might be scrambling. What if you're a sergeant major or a full, whatever, a general, whatever you may be? Even if it doesn't matter if you're a sergeant first class or whatever, staff sergeant, that time's still going to tick, and then you're going to be sitting around like waiting, wishing you would have. I didn't even go to my appointment, man. I was chaptering out. They had me tasked out when I was getting out of the military to chapter out 2 soldiers and make sure they made their appointments on top of me trying to make my appointments. So when they said I had a VA appointment, I said, I don't even know what that is. And no one said, no, man, you got to go to that. That's going to make sure you get your disability. I would have made sure I was there, but I didn't know it. So it's my fault. And, you can't blame anyone else at the end of the day, but these are things that just weren't put to our attention when we were getting out, and sort of got to pay the price. But then again, we can sit here and talk about it and learn from it. And hopefully someone else doesn't have to go through that same scenario.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, when I was a platoon sergeant, I was real big on, my guys taking care of themselves when they get out. You don't have a lot of leadership that does it. I mean, they're going to do it with the senior level once you're E7 or above. They tend to not really mess with you too much. But the juniors, they always want to make their life hard when they're getting out. It's almost like retaliation for leaving the army. I wasn't like that. Whenever my soldier said, "Hey, Sergeant, I'm ETS and I got this, that, and this. Hey, go take care of you. Just report to your squad leader." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so
Yeah.
a lot of soldiers don't take care of their personal issues because they're so worried about backlash. We've all seen it. You get a platoon sergeant or a first sergeant, whoever, a command team, and they know the guy's getting out. He's 100% getting out. And if he's not at a formation, or he's not doing this, or he's not somewhere, they're hounding you on where this guy is. You know where he's at, but
Yeah.
they want that person, I'm saying him because that's all I had. They want him to drop everything they're doing to come over here and sit through some brief about computer usage. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. I feel that, man. I can feel that personally too. Like, you put it in good perspective there. Like, yeah, they want you to suffer. Like, it's like, I don't know. It's like, man, you could have got out the military too, but when it's time to get out, you should give everyone their time, because they don't even know how to get out. That platoon sergeant or that first sergeant, they're not thinking about getting out. They're thinking about the mission at hand. They got to go to PT in the morning while you got to go to CIF. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of get stuck out there on the island. But what was something that you struggled with after you got out? Like, what'd you find after doing all that time in the military, having all those missions, having all that up tempo drill sergeant, deploying nonstop, all that leadership? Like, how did you decompress?
One thing that I would tell a lot of veterans out there is just know when you get out, you're not the star anymore. You know what I mean? In the military, it's easy. We're all the same. We're almost a monolith of people. When you get out, these civilians don't understand and they don't care. Technically, they don't care. So I had to train myself to understand that, okay, I'm not Sergeant First Class Harris anymore. I'm just Michael. That's all I
Yeah.
am. And you have to get that in your head that nobody cared if you got a Bronze Star with a V. Nobody cared if you got a CIB. No one cares. You have
Yeah.
to you have to click that off, put it in your tool bag when you need it, and become a civilian again. So I had to train myself to do that. And it is kind of disheartening to where, especially when I was working for the sheriff's department, you know, I was looking at it and I was just like, man, I go from taking 40 something dudes to combat, training thousands and thousands of soldiers as a drill sergeant, all this responsibility that I had. And I'm told I just got to make sure an inmate doesn't gets his Johnny sack and doesn't smear poop all over the wall. And I did that for 5 years. 5 years. And
what was your like awakening moment? You're like, whoa, like what was your aha moment?
it was during COVID. Well, there's two moments. So one, there was this inmate who was he was a level. So what a level is somebody that's could be considered violent or dangerous. So we call them levels, and they're in a certain color. So a level, and they have to be fully restrained whenever they come out
Okay.
their unit. Fully restrained, cuffs, belly chains, leg irons. That's fully restrained. So he wanted to come out and use the phone, and this is a booking post, so you have to allow them to use the phone after a certain amount of hours. So he asked me, he's like, "Hey, can I come out and use the phone?" I was like, "Yeah. We just got to get you fully restrained. I'll come out and let you use the phone." So got him fully restrained. He came out. I went back to my desk, and I went back to check this, and it was tiers. It was a lower tier and upper tier. This dude was up on the upper tier, and I looked up, and you can tell, and he slipped one of his cuffs out. He slipped it out. So he was like this, but he still had one hand free. So I'm looking up at him, and I'm like, "Hey, don't you do it." And I'm pointing to the top because I knew he looked like he wanted to jump. I was like, "Don't you do it." And I called for another officer. She ran up there, and this dude swan dived off the freaking upper tier.
How many?
I
That's wild.
Yeah, it's taller than a basketball hoop. It's
Yeah.
about 15 feet, maybe less. And me being me, I jumped under him trying to break his fall, and I did break the fall. He didn't hit, but he still hit, but he didn't hit. And blah blah blah, and all and I wasn't really looking for recognition for doing that, but it's the principle to me. They gave the female officer big recognition for her doing almost the same exact thing.
Yeah.
you know so I was like, all right, it's just part of the job, blah 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 blah, whatever. That moved on from that, and then COVID hit, and it was just hell. It was hell. When I talk about hell, it was like overtime because everyone was getting sick. People were getting COVID. Nobody wanted to come to work. So you would have mandatory overtime. That means you could be doing your 8 hours, and they'll come to you and say, "Hey, you got to work another 8 hours."
Oh man, yeah. You ain't leaving till there's no one coming to relieve you, but you got to leave another 8 hours when someone come to
Yep.
get you. That's wild.
And then you work that 8 hours. By the time you get home and you decompress and you take care of everything that you normally would take care of after an 8 hour shift, you're getting about 3 hours of sleep. Then you come back and do it again for 8 hours. So by this time, I was single. So I had dogs, and I was getting really upset. Like, man, I got to find somebody to go check on my dogs, man. I live alone. You guys got to give me a heads up. The days I knew I had it, the days I signed up, I prepared myself. I was like, all right, I might have to stay today. So that went on. Then I got COVID, and like, for real, and or what they call COVID. It's in a whole nother story,
Yeah,
but
whatever that is.
yeah, whatever. And so I was down they give you 14 days of COVID leave, to where you just sit at home, isolate, and do all this shit. And I was at my 14th day, and I was feeling a little better. I wasn't 100%, but I was way better than I was. I'm getting texts from the sergeants, the sheriff called me, the captain called me, the sheriff called Officer Harris, some officer one, just to say, "Hey, how you doing?" Da 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 da. Nobody called me during the time I was really sick. They called me my last day because they knew I was going to work the next day.
Make sure you coming back. Make sure you come back the next day.
That's exactly what that call was, to make sure I was good to come back to work. So after that, I was kind of like, all right, I'm tired of this,
Yeah,
So
seriously.
I started using more of my sick days, and because I had a bunch, so I would just call in sick. I was like, "Oh, I don't feel good, Sarge," and they can't deny it. They'd be like, "All right, hey, Sarge, I don't feel good." All right. So I remember that big storm hit Texas, that big ice storm,
Yeah.
snowstorm, whatever. And I live north of Austin, about like 10, 15 minutes. and I couldn't even get out my neighborhood. I was sliding all over the place just in my neighborhood. So, I got up to go to work. I stopped at a stop sign and I slid right through it. So I was like, screw this. I
Jeez.
turned around, went back home, called the sergeant, and they were like, somebody can come pick you up. We could put you up in a hotel just so you can come to work. They're going to put you in
Yeah,
a
they're gonna
hotel.
they're gonna do whatever needs as long as you can get there and pull that shift.
Yeah. And I told them, I was like, what about my dogs? I said, I'm not leaving my dogs. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, just call us whenever it clears up and da 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 da. So whatever. So after that, I was just like, I'm out. And I put in my 2 week notice and I left.
What'd you end up doing after that?
So after that, I knew someone that owned a CBD shop. He had asked me to go work there. I never worked in sales before. It was very low end money. It was crap, pay. But I did it, to learn something new.
Yeah,
Learn a little bit about CBD, and I learned about sales, marketing, how to market and sales and all that
right.
stuff. So I did that for about a year plus. We had a falling out and ended up not working there anymore. And then I got into culinary, and I've been doing culinary since last November.
You think that you were like bouncing around when you first got out, try to find like where you really want to end up being, and you just sort of trickled through what you went through?
Yeah, I think, I knew I wanted to do something in law enforcement because I wanted to understand a lot of it. I wanted to learn that side of the house. And most infantrymen, they end up doing that. I don't know how many guys that used to work for me that are cops now, or some detective somewhere. And then I figured out, I didn't really want to do that. So everything, trial and error. Everyone has a plan when they get out. Usually they have a plan of what they want to do when they leave. Some guys go into business for themselves, et cetera, et cetera. And usually plan A doesn't work out. It's usually your plan B that works. It's that initial plan. A lot of times that doesn't work the way you want to work it. That initial plan is always a learning experience. And then your plan B is usually the plan that usually works out for you. So you always have an A and a B. That CBD shop, that wasn't in the plan. That was just something I was sitting on my butt every day. I just needed a little extra money, so I started doing that.
Yeah,
So, I'm at where I want to be right now. This is what I want to do, and this is my passion, and I'm focused, and I this is where I'm supposed to be at, culinary. I know that now. I loved doing cooking back then, but I never thought back then that I would be doing what I'm doing now and learning what I'm learning now. I just knew I liked to cook, you know?
yeah. What do you want to do? Like, what's your goal when you get done with your schooling? Like, are you looking to do your internship at like a prestigious restaurant? Or are you just trying to look to do it to get it over with? Are you trying? What's your take on that?
Yes. So with the externship, it's they from what I understand, you can either go find your own externship. So if I want to go to a fine dining restaurant, I can go to a fine dining restaurant if that's where I see myself working.
Right.
So usually with your externship, you want to work in a style of restaurant that you want to work with if you start your own. So me, I want to go into the pizza business,
Okay.
but more like a fusion style pizza, more, kind of fine dining, but kind of in a casual dining restaurant.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like Mod Pizza or any of those places, but it's not going to be like Ruth Chris also. It's going to be kind of casual dining
Right.
and kind of a fusion style pizza joint. So when I first enrolled in the school, they asked you that question, like, what is your goal? What type of restaurant would you like to open? So I told them that. So usually when they look for your externship, they'll give you a list. Then you go and you interview because it's still a job. You have to go and interview. They look at everything and they'll let you know if you're going to work there. Some places pay you, some don't. I mean, I want to get paid, just even if it's just a little bit. If I'm giving my time,
Yeah.
doing with these guys, pay me a little bit. So you look for that, and then you know they set you up too, and that's where you start making connections. And that's the beauty about culinary. It's like any craft. When you're a welder, welders all know who other welders are, or electricians, or whatever, whatever craft you have. Same thing is with culinary. So it's all about, making a name for yourself initially, where people notice and they see, and do good in school. So when you go to whatever restaurant or job, you've already made a name for yourself, so that's already a plus. And then you just start networking. After that, you start meeting people that own this restaurant, that own this restaurant, that own this restaurant. It's just a network of people. And if you've already established yourself and shown that you can do it, these people will tell other people, like, hey, I know a guy, his name is this, he lives in the Austin area. You're looking for somebody, I know a guy, I'll give him your information, da 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 da. So, the externship, my goal is to establish myself really as a high-end chef. You know what I mean? I'm not going there low end, just something I'm just going to do it, just get it over with. No, I'm really going in there with the mindset of, when I walk in there, after a few weeks or a month or two, I want them to say, this is the guy I want, you know, running a restaurant for me, or, being the top chef in one of my restaurants. That's my mindset.
No, that's great. That's great to have that like that. Do you think um, that you're gonna want to work, at someone else's restaurant at first and sort of do that? And does cooking, like, does it stress you out, or does it more help you like decompress at the same time? Because sometimes I used to look at cooking. I guess you can look at it as different than you look at it as art. You can look at it as a game, because it's like it's never ending, man. You can like never. It's like never ending. You're never gonna be like, oh, I'm the best chef ever. There's always gonna be more you can learn. There's always different cuisines.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a never ending game. So does that sort of help you from your time away from the military? How do you see that?
Well, I look at it, like you said, or I look at it as an art form. So I look at culinary, keyword arts. I look at my cooking, and if you look at my Facebook, how I plate, everything I do, I take that very seriously. So I look at it as an art form. I present my food as an art form. Even though it tastes good, still, I want people to visualize it.
Most
They see
definitely.
it.
Eat
Yeah.
with your eyes first,
Yeah,
of
you
course.
always eat with your eyes. So, and it can be stressful at times, because there's times I'll be making something and I'll do it exactly how I'm told, and it doesn't come out the way, and that's not just me. You talk to any chef, it's until you've been doing it a long, long time to where you just know, like any craft, a lot of it's trial and error. Like, I made cookies, did exactly how they wanted me to do it, didn't come out. And the reason it didn't come out the way it was supposed to, because me not paying attention to one step. I did everything else. It was one step. You know what I mean? And that one little step ruined the cookies.
What was it?
I didn't put it in the freezer to let all that fat condense. So whenever you make cookie dough, and say you melt your butter or whatever, you make your cookie dough, you don't want to just, once you mix it and everything, you don't just want to just scoop it out and throw it in the oven immediately, because what it's going to do is going to flatten out that cookie. That's why you get those flat cookies, those real thin ones or flat ones.
Yeah.
So what you want to do, you want to put it in a refrigerator or a freezer. You don't want it to freeze, but you want to put it to where all that butter you put in there starts hardening up again. So whenever you scoop it and all that butter is hard in there, when you scoop it out and put it on the oven, when that butter starts to melt, it's going to create a steam, and that's where you get your rise, really, from the cooking, if you put yeast or anything in there, baking powder. But that's where that steam rises the cooking. You get that nice thick cookie, and I missed that step. My cookies look like pancakes.
Dude, we're getting cooking lessons from X11 Bravo right now, man. It's wild because 11 Bravo 11 Bravos, man, you guys used to be the ones complaining the most about the food sometimes until you were out in until everyone goes to the field, then you don't hear as much talking as when you're in the defect. But you know how it goes in the military. They always got them inner rivalries. But that's cool though, man. I mean, I'm glad that you found something that you love to do and like you can see yourself doing it in the future because I feel like one common denominator that everyone sort of struggle with is like finding their value, finding their worth. I
Mhm.
mean, something that I struggle with too. It's like I went through many jobs, man. I worked at Ruth Chris breakfast place, lunch place, vegan spot, this spot, that spot, pizza spot, Italian. It's like, dude, but it's like the beauty of I get it. I don't know if it's a beauty, but it's like you're not in the 6 year or 8 year or an indefinite year contract with these people. You can actually just get up and go and get a job probably the same day or within. I mean, there's jobs out here. There's the job might not be ideal, but you went through the same thing. It's like you know what I mean. You got to really swallow your pride to go from being a platoon sergeant, drill sergeant to say, hey, I'm going to go make $12.
Yep. And one thing that I see in a veteran community, because here in Austin, the veteran community is pretty big. It's huge.
Yeah.
And one thing that I always tell, guys that are getting out, guys that I still stay in contact with is I was like, be connected to the community, but do not let the community, overtake your goals and your mission. You know what I mean? So a lot of people, what I see, a lot of people just can't let it go. And I'm not saying screw the military, forget all that. I don't want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I'm saying at some point you have to detach yourself from veteran to now you got to start thinking about not, claiming that all the time. So, it's cool to have it. It's cool to have those friends. It's cool to have that community, but I'm over here and I'm focusing on this. This isn't going to do nothing for me over here.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you have to learn how to let stuff go to where you can get past, the brotherhood without, and I don't mean to sound cynical. Get past it without it letting overpower your decision making in your life.
Yeah. No, makes sense. Like, what do you think was one thing that was the hardest for you to let go of when, like, or like move past when you got in the military? Did you have trouble with that or not really?
When I first got out, yes, I did. When I first got out, the first thing I was doing, man, in El Paso, I was on Facebook. I was looking for like drinking bros because drinking bros was a big thing. So I found drinking bros Austin. So I started reaching out to people and I was just like, hey, I'm moving to Austin. I'm getting out the military. And they started, reaching back. They're like, yeah, live here. Here's a good place to live, blah, blah, blah. And I was really, really deep into the drinking bros community, into the veteran community, into just veteran. That's all my life, was outside of going to work every day. And even at work, I was just like, oh, veteran, you're a veteran. I'm a veteran. Hey, high five.
Yeah.
And then you realize, like, I enjoy it, but it's not going to pay the bills. It's not gonna help me, when my roof needs repair per se. So I got to start focusing on how I'm going to be successful. I can't ride the coattails of, all these apparel companies and all this. So I want to create my own. That's why you'll never really see me say anything on my cooking page about being a veteran. People that know I'm a veteran know I'm a veteran, but I
Yeah.
don't really I don't really talk about that too much, because I don't want people to look at me and give me something because I was a veteran and for some reason they feel sorry for me. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So I don't
Nah,
really I don't really use that in most of the things I do. Even in school, they might know the administration might know I'm a veteran, but the instructors don't, fellow students don't. None of them know. Now, if someone asks me, of course, I say, yeah, I was in the
yeah.
military for such time. I did this, that, and this. So I would say to people that are like transitioning, get in your mind again that when you step off and you take that uniform and those boots off, that you are a civilian. Just get that in your head, and you can train yourself, start talking like civilians, start, hanging out with civilians. I didn't do that when I initially got out. Everybody I hung out with was a veteran. And guess what we
Yeah.
talked about all the time?
Same stuff.
The
Veteran
same stuff.
stuff, military stuff. Yeah.
That's all we talked about. Veteran this, veteran that. I did this, I did that, I did this. It was, a dick measuring contest pretty much. I did this.
Yeah.
Look at me. I did this. I did this. There was really no ideas coming out. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about starting this. I mean,
Dude,
there was some, but the majority of it was just a bunch of, hooah and hoorahs and blah, 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 and just like, oh my God, let's talk about something else.
you think it's because, like, I mean, we can only assume, but think about, like, like everyone was programmed a little bit when you're in the military. You just got everything mapped out for you to a certain extent, or you just take orders and then you roll them downhill. And it's like when you get out, like, no one's really trying to think about how they can really make something happen out of like what they have, rather than just throw whatever they got going on into the mix.
Yeah, and I understand that, for a lot of guys, and I'm not taking away from guys, because a lot of guys, this is the highlight of their life. You know what I
Right.
mean? For a lot of us, I mean, I loved being an infantryman. I love doing what I have to do. So a lot of guys, this is it. Depending on their background, they could have come from an environment to where they had nothing. There was nothing. And a veteran was the highlight, military was the highlight of their life. I'm not taking away from those guys, but I keep everything that the military has taught me. A lot of it. That's what's helped me throughout life, past with my life outside of the military, being very consistent, being on time, showing respect, those things, always doing the right thing. So there's a lot of things that you can take from what you learned in the military and transition it over, of course, because it's a part of your life. It's always going to be a part of your life. But you have to let certain portions of it, you know, stay in the toolbox. You don't need to bring everything to the forefront.
No, you got made some good points on that, because you gotta have to draw that line. You don't your cooking chapter in your life is a total different chapter. It has nothing to do with your military. You want to do you want that. Just like I talked to Orlando yesterday, Command Sergeant Major, 32 years in. He said, "Man, that ship sailed when I got my retirement papers. It's like I'm Orlando again. Finally, I was Sergeant Major, whatever, Sergeant this for 32 years. So it's like it's a whole new chapter, but definitely something that seems like a lot of people struggle with. I mean, there are people that get jobs and like, oh, everything was mapped out well, but it seems like more times than none, it's the opposite way of, hey, like I'm trying to figure out what I got to do. I'm not really fitting in with these jobs, but it's like trial and error. It's just different to hear all these people's perspectives, especially coming from like senior NCOs and stuff like that. So far, I've had a lot of senior NCOs on here, and you guys have had like great insight. Just figure, and it's funny too, because like a lot of people they're not done when they get out. Like you see people that get out the military, like maybe they were in 30 years, some of that high 20 years, and sometimes they pass away because they like lose their sense of worth. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's out there too. But so I guess the moral of the story is like time is no different than in the military than it is like with your kids. Like you probably look back at your kid, your son is 18. You probably like look back and like, man, those years went by so fast, and you were in the military for most of them, so it probably went by double as fast.
Yep.
Being gone, being on a trail, doing this, doing that, always going, always doing stuff. But platoon sergeant, you're the dad of like 20, whatever, however many soldiers are in your platoon. You're pretty much like a dad figure to them anyways. That's just how a good NCO operates, right? You're like, you're there with all your soldiers and stuff like that. But yeah, man, it's a long drawn out process. And it's like, when that time comes to get out, it doesn't slow down.
Yeah, and you're right. Life goes on, and like that Sergeant Major said, the Sergeant Major Orlando,
Yeah.
the ship sails, man, and again, it's that initial culture shock when you get out, especially when you do it for a 2 decades and plus for some people, it is a culture shock, because you don't have people doing things for you, everything is you. And
Yeah.
you have to understand that that ship has sailed. It's there. You're not getting back on that boat. Now you're over here on this island. How are you going to build on this island? What are you going to do? What are you going to build? And how are you going to do it? For me, you have to, I write a lot of stuff down, man. So what I
Same.
do, for day to day and simple day to day task. Tomorrow I'm going to fold my laundry. Task. Check. Tomorrow I'm going to mop the floor. And you go from your smallest task to your biggest task and your biggest goal. So you start psychologically, you start hitting these gates, right? I did that. Man, I did that. Boom, here's a big task. I'm going to plant a garden. Man, I did it and it's growing. Next task. So the minute you start setting those tasks and you start accomplishing those tasks, you'll be able to do anything you want. But if you can't get out and accomplish the most minute stuff, and that's just functioning, it's going to be very hard for you to do anything big and be successful. It's going to be
No,
very hard.
yeah, you're right about that, man. Like I'm big on that, like writing lists down and just like write, like you said, check marks or cross that because you're also putting it in your subconscious mind. So like you said, you're just doing those little checks and balances every day. And when you do it small, then the big stuff comes and whatever you like put. If you don't put something on paper, it's just a dream. It could possibly never become a reality. But that's just the importance of goal setting. And you talk to a lot of different veterans and your friends and stuff like that, and like, the VA has good stuff, and we're not here to knock none of that stuff like that. But they work on goal setting too. It's like a commonality. Just a lot of people don't even write stuff down anymore. Never mind like write down what they want to do or become a better version of themselves. It's not easy, but like nothing that good is that easy. You know what I mean? Like fast money
Mhm.
is not always good money. Same thing with like if you lose a whole bunch of weight fast, it might not be the healthiest way to do it. So it's like sometimes things just take time, but we gotta take the time to draw out the treasure map and the process to get the treasure at the end of the day. But now, what if you could tell someone or tell yourself something, back when you're in the military, what would like a little quick pep talk or like a little message be to yourself?
For transitioning,
Yeah.
just have a plan, have goals and write those goals down. Start writing them down the minute you say you're going to get out. Say you're going to get out May 1st, or you said you're going to get out of May 1st. You don't get out until, December 1st. You should have a weekly calendar of everything you're going to accomplish, and set those goals. And every goal you accomplish, that's the ego booster right there. Check, 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 check. Like my biggest goal that I've set and I accomplished was to quit drinking. I quit. I went through a rough patch, but that was a goal I wanted to set for myself. And I haven't touched a bottle in going on 4 months. Five, and I set
Hey,
that goal. You know what I mean? And it's just, and that was an ego boost for me. I was like, man, alcohol is one of the hardest things you can quit.
yeah, most
It,
definitely. You come off that, you get sick. I used to work at a mental
mhm.
health hospital. You see people come in there with like tremors and stuff like that, and like they can't get off of it. They need it. The only way they can like get better is to do it more. So, more
Yep.
props to you for doing that, man. Because I know, like you and everybody else in the military. That's all you could really do legally. If you're of age, you're going to do drinking, man, and that stuff's no better than anything else out there on the market just because you can get it at the class 6 or whatever. That, I mean, you wake up feeling horrible and then you go out and do it again. But yeah, man, I try to leave that drinking trash, that drinking stuff for myself too behind. It's just not enjoyable to do that. But
Mhm.
so congratulations on that, man. Keep it up and
And
don't get on that.
yeah, and you feel better, man. Like, for me, I get up in the morning, right? And like I say, I have a routine. And when I talk about consistency, consistency just isn't at work. You have to be consistent in your life.
Yeah.
Like everything you do is very, calculated and consistency. And then it'll just become a norm. get up at this time every freaking morning. Get up before the sun comes, however, whatever you want to do, whatever time you want to get up.
Yeah.
I try to get up, and I do my best to get up between 5 and 7 in the morning.
Okay.
That's the time, depending on what time I go to bed. So usually I'm up around between 5 and 7. I get up, sun's coming up. I do all my little hippie stuff. I go out there, look at the sun, come back in, feed my dogs, take my dog, and it's just boom, boom, boom. Turn on, do my social media, check, read articles and stuff, getting ready for whatever I have to do that day. It's just a routine, and I do. And if I don't have nothing else to do, most of the time I spend my time either watching documentaries, and I'm constantly feeding myself information. And that's another good thing. You should constantly search for more. You know what I mean? Because if not, you're going to get bogged down, and this is what happens to a lot of vets. Instead of searching for more, they're comfortable with what they're used to. They're
Yeah.
comfortable
Oh
with
yeah.
that.
Even civilians. Yeah. No one wants to leave their comfort zone. Why
Yep.
would they want to do that? They don't want to grow. The only way you're going to grow, but a lot of people aren't willing to take the plunge because it's uncomfortable. Why do I want to read a book when I can sit here and watch The Simpsons or something, whatever the case may be, or why do I want to go walk outside when I could eat ice cream? But yeah, it's choosing like the hard right over the easy wrong, I guess, in some cases. But nah, man, those are all great points. I feel like I've struggled probably with all of them too, but it's just a matter of keep going, perseverance, man. Like, don't let it. If you have one bad day, don't let it overcome you. Like, don't let that overcome all the good that you've done too, because transition's definitely not easy, man. Like, you go from living with all these people and having friendships and stuff like that, and it's just not the same when you get out and you're living in a different state. Yeah, you can pick the phone up and call, but you were around those people day in and day out, and then you go back to you might be isolated with your wife or your kids, or maybe you're by yourself. It's like you just don't really know what veterans are going through. So appreciate someone like you willing to share your story, and hopefully together we can all grow this, and help as many people as we can, because that's all we're trying to do at the end of the day.
Yep, and you're right. Find your niche and find your thing. Everyone has a gift. I truly believe that. Everyone has some type of God-given gift. Everyone.
True.
So once you find that, to guys transitioning or getting out, they know what they're good at. They know already. Everybody knows. You knew before you got out what you're good at. And you need to hone in on that. If start now. Start if you're a carpenter, start now. Hone in on that. Why? Because you're building your resume for when you get out. This is why you notice I always post like my cooking stuff and my pictures and all. You see it is constant
Yeah.
because what I'm doing, I'm building my resume. So whenever you're building, whatever you paint, I don't care. Build your resume, show people, highlight it. They're going to share it. Someone's going to see it. So now you're building your resume. You get out, you move to your city, and they'll be like, oh man, I saw your work on such and such. Build your resume, hone in on that niche. Hone in every single day of your life. You need to find a way to make yourself better. You know?
Yeah, and take action, do it. Don't get into analysis paralysis of like thinking you're gonna do all this stuff. Just get in and do it, man. We're still gonna fail, we're gonna fall, but take a calculated risk. Don't be like, hey, I think I'm gonna buy this $500,000 food truck. I don't really know if it makes money, but I'm gonna go ahead and buy this. I'm gonna go all in. I don't really, but yeah, no, you gotta calculate that a little bit. But other stuff, like you said, you just gotta dive in and do it, man. Like, you're not gonna get anywhere by sitting on the sideline just thinking about what if. So that's a big thing I've been trying to do too. Just take action, man. Like these things aren't going to be perfect. These videos aren't going to be perfect, but the fact is that we're doing it. And like 90% of people that, just for instance, they say that even do podcasts quit. So it's like most of the time, if you just be persistent and consistent, like you said, like that, dude, that kills the competition. There's not really much competition out here. A lot of people don't want to work. A lot of people are looking for easy handouts and stuff like that. It's just different from the military mindset for the most part.
Yeah. And one thing, one advice I can give, and something I've learned, you know, is that nobody's coming to save you, man.
Seriously, I've been saying that like every
Yep.
day, and I mean, Goggins says everyone says that stuff, but it's such a a clear cut method, message, man, because
Yep.
that's the truth, dude. We can sit here and complain about everything, nobody cares. You can do this, you can do that, a lot of people don't even care. So, but you're right, man. You're right. I've had to come to that realization myself too, man,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, oh man, I'm down. But dude, you stop. You can't be down and out. You got to get up and just do good things over and over. Like you said, you have a schedule. It's still important. Like when we were in the military, you had a schedule. 6:30 in the morning, you're going to PT till 8:30. Then you're going to take a shower and be at work at 9. Then you're going to go to lunch. Then you're going to come back and you do whatever, and you're gone at 1700 or whatever the case may be. In the infantry, you might be doing PT twice a day because you got people failing PT or they're not getting a high enough PT score. Everything was mapped out, man, to a T. You know what I mean? And when you went on deployment, it got easier because no one's going out getting in trouble on the weekends for the most part, like getting a call at the MP station. But yeah, man, I guess when you get out here and you have like the world is essentially in your hands, dude, you're literally, when you were talking earlier, I was just thinking, it's like people are starting over as grown-ups, man. You're literally starting your like another career as a grown adult. You spent your whole adulthood like up until when you got out in the service, dude. You joined when you were young. Me too. I was 18. I got out. I was almost 20 something years old. So that's a lot of time. People are just going to get degrees and get a first job, and we're just gonna have to start over. So definitely.
Yeah. And the thing is, like you said, we joined when we were kids. Our childhood, the good years, all the years when our friends are out doing whatever, hanging out, going here, going there, we weren't. So our whole childhood, all the way through adulthood for me, all the way through, my late 30s I was in the military. You know what I mean? So now when I'm getting out, I'm kind of behind per se when it comes to like life, but I'm not behind when it comes to like I'm successful, but I'm still behind when it comes to civilian counterparts on certain aspects in certain fields. I'm starting late, but again, people out there going to understand it. We all love being part of a group. We love our veteran friends. We love our military friends. But like we said, at the end of the day, you're on your own. At the end of
Seriously,
the day,
dude.
you're
That's
on
it.
your own. Yep. Stop thinking that some veteran group or some veteran is going to come and save you. You might have a select few, because I do have some really, really, my best friend is a veteran. We've been friends for 27 years.
Yeah.
He's always going to be there. But I'm talking about in a group. Just understand, you could look around, and if them people don't even know your birthday, you're on your own, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So if you go in with that mindset, like at the end of the day, I'm on my own, no one's going to come save me, you'll be fine. Don't think someone's going to save you, because they're not. Only you can do that.
You're right, man. And I think we should cut it at that. Michael, bro, appreciate you, man. It's nice meeting you. And hopefully you come back sometime and we just keep going at it, bro. So, hey, you guys have a plan. Think about what you guys are going to do before you get out. Reach out if you got any questions. But at the end of the day, like my boy said, no one's coming to save you or me or him. So it's up to us. But it's up to us as a group to try to get the information out there and just be there for each other. So we appreciate y'all listening today. Have a good rest of y'all's weekend. Take care.